Let's talk about parents. You had any good interactions or dealings with parents lately?
I just was playing because I love the game. Like, and it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Glow sticks in his hands, whistle in his mouth.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
I feel like every week this year. I feel like when you're in a season, specifically the one that we've had this year, there's always going to be parents. And even when you're winning, you're going to have parents. We had a little one this past weekend where a parent decided he wanted to go up to a coach and aggressively express his feelings. And, little did he know that coach was not me. It was actually my running back coach, but we're both white. We're both bald. And so it was the wrong guy. And so that was the current debacle we had this past weekend. But, I feel like you have those weekly when you're having a rough season.
I think that it's, something I tried to apply to everyday life program, like coaching kids, like situational awareness, and I don't know,
No
I don't know if I just haven't been put in these situations because my kids are still young enough to where it's not, it's not life or death. But let's get our head on a swivel a little bit and let's have a little situational awareness.
Yes.
Me personally, I can't imagine attempting to aggressively confront somebody while they're holding their toddler. I don't know. Maybe I'm the outlier. Maybe I'm the one that's, wrong here. But to me, situational awareness, and everybody knows or should know. If you don't know, let me just tell you about an unofficial, nationwide rule when it comes to coaching in sports. It's called the 24-hour rule.
That's right.
And
that's right.
If, coaches, if you're not having this a conversation with parents and players, you need to. Nothing should ever be attempted to, and nothing ever will be solved immediately at the end of insert game that was just played. Football game, basketball game, track meet, baseball game, softball game, doesn't matter. It'll never be solved there. And this is not like a new thing. This is not just like a coaching thing. The term cooler heads will prevail exists for a reason. And I'm mind blown and I'm baffled that because there's a scoreboard that's turned on, that we pretend that isn't going to apply to these situations anyway. So I get where you're coming from. And I think it is, I think it's hilarious that Rodney Carrington used to have a joke when people would try and loudly and overtly heckle him. He's like, I don't come to your job and throw rocks at you while you're mowing. Shut up and let me do my job. I just don't understand. I don't understand having the confidence and the audacity to be let me tell you how much you messed up at doing what you do, even though I have no clue what you do. I have no idea how much time, effort, and energy you put into it. And there's memes and wives' Facebook posts that the list is the laundry list is a mile long of the defense of these situations. But yet they keep reoccurring. And so I feel like it needs to keep being talked about. I am shocked on a regular occurrence at situations like this. A few years ago, unnamed player, unnamed parent, unnamed school, at halftime of a football game, a supporting parent of a kid on the team was openly heckling the players and the coaches from the bleachers about, well, you can't just beat up on cupcakes every week. You can't just play, XYZ high every week. Got to play real opponents. Mm-hmm. Mind you, we had opened the season against 3 top 10 opponents, but we're playing cupcakes every week. And I'm sure none of this had to do with the fact that he was probably upset about little Timmy's playing time. I'm sure none of that came into factor at all. And I got some advice from Coach Elliott my second or third year at Salina. And the short version of it is, you you don't have to be, a hermit, but you do have to be a little bit guarded, because people that, especially in the off season, that are buddy, like gung ho, can I get you anything? Yada, yada. Let me help you out. Come to the house. Let's go to dinner. Da, 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 da. A lot of times, two things happen. If they don't get the results that they expect to get just for being nice to you when it comes to their kid's playing time, or when their kid graduates, they're done with you.
Yep. 100%.
And more often than not, that's going to come into play. But I will say that that's not a blanket statement. And there are good parents out there. There are good people out there in good communities that you can build and maintain those relationships with, and they can carry on, through the ups and downs, the trials and tribulations, and after their kid's done playing. But unfortunately, you have to be very much head on a swivel, to make sure that you can see the true intentions and read the room and have that situational awareness from your own side. But it, I had a former player tell me one time, the game of football is simple. Coaches and parents are usually the ones that screw it up. And I think that it's funny that this is it's just a revolving door of new, but the same general type of parent situations where the situational awareness might be at an all-time low.
Yeah. It's something I can go on about for a long time. It's like Coach Lee would always say, outward anger is just the expression of internal, basically the manifestation of your anger inside of you, and the manifestation of your internal resistance. And so generally, and I'll elaborate on that with especially high school parents, the loudest ones are going to be the ones that have just let it build up for the longest because they just don't know what they're talking about. Like the ones that don't speak, they've either been a coach before or they actually have awareness of what's going on. And even if they don't have awareness, they have enough awareness for their own emotions to be able to not allow it to get to that point. They have a conversation privately with the coach to try to, hey, help me understand why my son is not playing. Help me understand why, this or that, just to try to actually get some understanding. Whereas most parents, they don't look for understanding. They just want to be heard. And then they're not looking for a response from the coach. They're just looking for their answer that they're desiring there, which is obviously stupid. One of our coaches on staff, he's a very successful businessman, sold a company, I think when he was in his late 30s, and, hadn't worked a day since. And technically, but he's a volunteer here. He's been a volunteer for a long time, and he's somebody I look up to tremendously. And he was like, man, I do think whether it's the business world, I think there's so many things that you can apply from the business world into coaching. Unfortunately, so many coaches just don't see it in this way. He was like, I think one of the best things you can do is make a rule at the beginning of a year. Hey, parents, if you want to have a conversation, that's okay. But the first thing you have to do is you have to send me an email before we ever speak. And I want you to state on the email, what are your issues? Why are you upset? Literally list them out, and then list out the solutions that you're looking for. He's like, TK, you'll be amazed at how many times people will write that email and then end up hitting delete, because once they write it, they figure out how stupid the issues are that they are stating. But until they physically put them down, they just sound smart to them, and it's just outward anger that they're trying to express. And moving on, if I ever become a head coach, that's going to be the first thing I do is, nope, write an email, tell me what the issues are, tell me your desired solutions, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, and the other part of it is if when it gets to the point of the one-on-one, like face-to-face meeting, don't get it twisted. Your kid's going to be in there, and your kid is going to hear exactly what you're upset about, and he or she is going to hear how you express it to those coaches.
Dude, that is like the most like to your point. I've been in meetings before where we've had like multiple meetings with a parent, and then you know what? Let's invite the kid. We should have done that in the first place. Let's invite the kid. And the moment the kid gives his answer and his side of it, which was not the side that he was expressing to his parents, that meeting is done. Like the parents realize, oh wait, you haven't been telling me the truth. And it's like, that's normally what the case is.
And you just look at him and you're like,
you haven't been telling me the whole story.
Yeah. You just look at him and you're like, oh, your kid didn't tell you everything. Your teenage son left information out. Shocker.
Crazy.
Or they come to the harsh reality when they sit in that meeting. It's like, oh, I guess I want this more than he does. Maybe this is more about me than it is whatever my son or daughter's like true goals and desires and aspirations are. And that's the kryptonite. Now, if they walk in and it's a united front, cool. That's great. That means that you two have already had a conversation, which is going to make this go a lot smoother. And I understand that we have true paralleled intentions and expectations. It's not just Timmy came home and he was upset, and I assume it's because of this, this, and this. And so I'm going to tell you all about it. But the vast majority of the time they walk in and like you said, that tone changes, or that message changes. But
I think the hardest thing, I want to elaborate real quick on I think how the season, obviously, and this, your coach, but like how the season goes is very, very important. So for example, like let's say you have a kid, senior, it doesn't matter position. He's not playing a lot or hardly at all. And you're having a season where every game you've been in is a dogfight. Like there are times where and most of the time, you can't put that kid in because he's an absolute liability. And at the end of the day, and I hear this from a lot of parents, well, he worked hard. Like if your justification for me to play your kids because he works hard, then you don't understand the world. Because that's the dumbest thing you could have said. And now you're teaching your kid a really dumb lesson where it's like, no, our job is to develop these kids. But when it comes to Friday night specifically, it is to put production on the field and to win. That's the Friday night goal. And I can't put a liability in there. And so if you truly think that obviously, well, he works hard, he deserves to go in there, and he's a senior, it's the dumbest thing you could say. And it's not my fault that we have yet to have a game where we're up 45 points where I can say, you know what? Yeah, put little Tommy in there for 25 plays. Because if we did, I would do that. But if we're in a grinder every single week where it's like coming down to the last drive of the game, I'm just sorry. We have to do what's best for the team. And putting a kid in who might miss his block, who might not make the block, or might end up dropping the ball, that's not the best way for this team to win. And you have to understand the macro picture, not the micro of your son.
But here's the twofold of that. What those parents don't realize is I'm doing this to reward your son's hard work. Imagine if he worked that hard and put in so much effort, and because of personnel decisions on Friday night, it led us to be 2-8. When instead I could reward his hard work and effort and the collective dedication of the team by putting us in personnel situations to be 8-2. And in 20 years, he can be like, man, my senior year, we did, me and my group of friends, we put this in extra and we did all these extra things and it paid off because we went 8-2 in the regular season, made it to the fourth round of the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. But instead, and you have to accept the reality that parents out there exist. I know because I heard it be said. I would rather my son or daughter be on the field and we lose than for them to not and we win.
That's right.
Those people exist, and that's exactly what makes this such an uphill battle every single day. Mm-hmm. I mean, Matt Stepp, week 4, week 5 tweeted, everything was anonymous and it's on Twitter. You can go check it out. This team, I mean, they were undefeated. It was 4 or 5 games in. This team's undefeated, and they've punted 3 times in the first 4 or 5 games. And their punter is a senior. Parent confronts the coach, livid. You're not playing my son enough, and he deserves to be on the field. He's going to quit on Monday. And he quit because he's the starting punter, and they don't fail on offense enough.
Oh my God.
Those people exist in the world, and they create unnecessary adversity for programs and for kids, and they create roadblocks just because of pure ego. And it blows my mind. Yep. It absolutely blows my mind. And the fact that you can be 5-0, 4-0, 10-1, 9-1, whatever, you can have a phenomenal record. And somebody is going to try and walk up to you and rain on your parade and tell you how you're not good at your job and here's what you need to fix. Right. The fact that those people exist, it helps you understand. I mean, what does he say in Friday Night Lights? The only difference between winning and losing is how a lot of people in the outside world look at you. Like, they don't care what the score is.
Yep.
You know, and I'm over here
Yep.
you're over here trying to preach to your kids like, hey, it's about the team. It's about the team. It's about the team. It's not about your touches. It's not about your tackles. It's about the team. It's about the team. And then obviously we have kids going home and hearing the complete opposite. Makes no sense.
Problem. Yeah, the echo chamber is not there. And that's where, like, would you agree? Like, I have kids, obviously. We have kids. And, like, you know, obviously I'm an ultra competitor. So are you. I've already had moments now. Okay, let's do this, for example. My daughter, okay, she played up this year, right? And, you know, she should have been playing, like, basically in the 3 or 4 division. She's playing up with the 6-year-olds. And it's co-ed, you know. But long story short, we wanted the coach for her to play, you know, the coach she should play for. He was up in the 6th division. So I was like, you know what, let's do that because we'd rather have a coach who can lead her. And so that's what we did. Dude, it broke my heart and got me fired up on the inside when I'm watching these 3 or 4-year-old girls going against these 6-year-old boys and girls, and they're getting dominated. And you could say I'm a psychopath because I'm getting frustrated about 3 or 4-year-old soccer. But, like, I get it. Like, when your son or daughter, you're seeing that they are not good enough, like, I get it. Like, that can be frustrating, like 100%. And I think as the ultra competitor, you see that and it's like, dang it. But you also have to have awareness and say, well, that's not the coach's fault. Like, if anything, it's your fault. Genetics, bad genetic. I don't know. Like, you didn't pass on the genes. But the other one that you have, right? And most of those people that are ultra competitors, they actually get it, right? Because they were probably pretty competitive in high school and they got it. And it's more of them telling their kid, hey, you got to work harder. You got to work harder. The other side of it you have the parents, and this is, I think, probably more of the common one. You have the parents that weren't any good. They didn't get their chance. They didn't get playing time. And they're trying to live through their son or their daughter, in this case, their son. And he's not getting it either. And that, to me, is like they were waiting for that moment for 17 or 18 years for their son to play, and he didn't. That is the internal resistance that's build up, and all of a sudden now they lash out. It's like, no. You go back to the root of the problem. This actually happened when you were 17 or 18 years old, and you were never taught the lesson in the real world that you weren't good enough, and that's okay. But until you are taught that the right way, is you're going to pass it down from generation to generation to generation.
And here's the thing is that it's not like it's a parent issue, that it's not unique to like the life of a coach or, you know, anything of that nature. I was at an engagement party last night, and my buddy, his brother-in-law, they have triplets. They have 2 girls and a boy, and both parents are very athletic. One of their kids, one of their daughters, she was last in, and he's telling me this story because he's asking about coaching, things like that. He's telling me the story. He said one of our girls, she was last in everything. She was the last to roll over. She was the last to crawl. She was the last to walk. She was, you know, the last to talk. She was this. She was that. And the point they're at now, because I think I'm going to throw out an age and it's going to be wrong, but they're probably 7. Yeah, probably 7. But where they're at now is that he's a big soccer guy. Played basketball, played soccer, and like soccer is a great like introductory sport for young kids, right? So they go to the park, and what he's learning is that because she dealt with all those like struggles and adversities of being last and it taking more focus and more effort, when he's now coaching them on soccer skills, like let's try kicking with our right foot, well, our left foot, let's pass it, let's lob it, et cetera, et cetera. The other 2 who have naturally picked up all of these, you know, movement skills much easier, when things don't come to them very easy, they get frustrated and they just quit or don't try, and they do it the easy way. And his child that has had these struggles, that has had to be coached and spent more conscious effort learning these skills, she's handling it so much better because she's handled that adversity. So when you play your kids up in a youth sport, you have to do it don't play them up because like, oh, I know little Timmy's, you know, he may be 4, but he's better than all the 7-year-olds. Watch this, boom, 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 boom. You can't approach it from that state of mind. You have to approach it from the fact that like we are introducing adversity. He is going to build his skills within the sport, but we're introducing adversity, and it's going to help him in the long run. And if you can't do that, then, you know, make sure that you understand the scope of skill and the ramifications of your decisions, because that's the part that gets missed. And
Yes.
I think that that's where, like, and that's okay, right? Like, if your son's not getting everything that he wants right now, but he's being treated with respect, he's being coached like a peer or an equal to his teammates, and he's getting all of those other things, it's just not showing up in the box score, that's okay. And he's going to be better for it. Because nobody in 15, 20 years when he goes to his high school reunion, nobody's going to be like, hey, remember how I had 75 catches our senior year and you had 2? No one's going to do that.
Right.
They're all going to be like, hey, remember our senior year when we went 11-2? Remember this game and how much fun it was? Yes. Like, what are we doing? What are we talking about? And if a kid's on the bubble of being in this situation anyway, don't you dare bring up college to me.
Correct.
I think, honestly, this is a perfect segue into the other thing that I wanted to talk about because it's going to come full circle. But this weekend was a big weekend for Coach Briles. It's no secret. I've never hesitated at an opportunity to say thank you and tell the world how much that man has done for me. But this weekend, 2 big things. So Friday night, it is officially announced that when Stephenville High School builds their new stadium, it will be Art Briles Stadium. It will be Mike Copeland Field played in Art Briles Stadium. Coach was there for the majority of the 90s, won 4 state championships, really, really propelled Stephenville to consistently be what I think that it still is right now with Coach Doty. And that was the job that the success led to him making the jump into the college ranks. And to see him honored in that way, I think is a great thing. Obviously, this will be, when that stadium's built, it'll be the first time that Stephenville High School has its own stadium. It's always shared with Tarleton. Tarleton's now in Division I. They don't want, little brother playing on Friday nights before games. Totally get it. So they're probably going to build a $40-50 million facility, and it's going to have Coach Briles' name on it forever. And I think that's a huge deal. And then Saturday, Baylor's honoring the 2013-2014 Big 12 championship teams at the game against TCU, which is a whole level of irony to begin with. But some of the players found out that the coaching staff from those teams would not be included, and so they made it a point to have kind of like an unofficial get together for players and coaches, because they wanted to make sure and honor Coach Briles and Coach Bennett and everything that they did. And it was a weekend for the 2 conference championship teams. And between those 2 teams, there was over 100 players that showed up to that on on Saturday afternoon before the game. And I think that speaks volumes of the ripple effect and the impact that both of those men had. And although I wasn't a part of either one of those conference championships, knowing a lot of those guys, having played with them my last year or 2 when they were young pups, it was awesome to see. And I think it's something that the world needs to know, because that many kids don't show up. I say kids, we're all in our 30s. Like, what am I talking about? Yeah. That many people, that many players, former players, don't show up unless the impact is real and the investment is real and the coaching is real. And, I think that is something that the world needs to know about, because, and I briefly texted with Coach Briles, and solely because I was so happy for him. And I just think the world needs to know that, like, you don't make that big of an impact on kids and players and teams and communities and programs. You don't make that big of an impact if it's not genuine. It's impossible. Mm-hmm. And that 100+ is a tip of the iceberg, because I guarantee you, there's still people in the coaching profession that I come across that either played for him at Houston or at Stephenville or crossed paths with him somewhere. Everybody's got a Coach Briles story, and it's always positive, and the investment and the sincerity. And, I just think that man doesn't get his flowers enough. And I was glad that he got both of those opportunities this weekend.
Yep. I mean, everybody's got a story to your point, and I have one. So, um, he, I think the main purpose, obviously that we're here for, one of them is the impact of what you make in the world. And there's certain people out there that are able to, within one conversation, make a drastic impact on you, or you make a drastic impact on them. And so I remember the 2014 Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. You took me to practice. I believe it was 14, maybe 13. Anyway,
13.
You took me to the first practice, and 13. And I got to meet Coach Briles, and just situationally, he's, just finished practice, but we're all coaches. I coached college before. There's other things that are way more important than talking to some slap like myself after practice. I get it, right? And so you introduce me, and I'm like, "Hey, my name's Trenton Kirkland from Borger, Texas," and he says something along the lines of like, "Oh, Borger, I know where Borger is at," and I'm like shook because nobody knows where Borger, Texas is at, and so he ends up rattling off some random things about Borger, and I'm kind of shook at that moment. Whatever, we move on. He'll never remember me again. Okay, fast forward, and it may have been a year, even longer, right? I see him again. It may have been you and I again. I don't remember. But I remember he says, "Mr. Borger, Texas," and then says my name after that. And dude, the impact that made on me internally and in my heart was so drastic. And it's like we can never have a conversation ever again. And I'll always remember that moment with that person for the rest of my life because of the impact. And it's just you took time to consider and be where your feet were at and have a conversation with myself. He was never too big for anybody. And that's where I grew to really appreciate Coach Briles.
Yeah, and the reason I said it would come full circle is because, I think that we've touched on this before. I think being a walk-on painted a different perspective in my football scope, program lens, defined roles, etc. But I always approached my job within Baylor football, my role within those teams was as much as I could without my ego and emotions getting in the way to kind of sit down, shut up, work hard, and make sure if they notice something, it's not because of what I said, it's what I did. And I was there before Coach Briles got there. So I convinced myself that he's inheriting me. They're inheriting me. They didn't pick me, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. I've just got to work that much harder, and I've got to prove to them that I'm worth this locker. And I convinced myself because I wasn't one of the walk-ons that he brought in. I wasn't one of the guys that he signed that that there's levels to this thing. And the harsh reality is that was all up here because Coach never saw it that way. Never saw it that way. And I didn't learn that until I got out of my comfort zone and went in. I remember it's spring of 2011. We just wrapped spring ball. I'm trying to figure out, I got 1 year left. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing with life. I know this chapter of football is coming to an end. And for the first time ever, I requested hey, Coach Briles, can I talk to you? And it was just hey, I'm thinking about looking to, get into an internship this summer. I'm in the business school. Football is about to come to an end. I just want to kind of start to be prepared for that. And he was like, whatever you need from us. He's like, you're going to take care of what you need to take care of. You're going to cross your T's and dot your I's. I'm not worried. You just communicate with us what you need, where you're going to be, and it'll be all good. And immediately could have been what do you mean you're not going to be here? You think your position is safe? Mm-hmm. We got kids that want to be here every day. Because even at that point, I understood my role, and I understood that I'm still a bubble 105 guy. I'm still a bubble travel guy. It just is what it is. The team wasn't getting less talented. So I knew that was the scope. That was the realm. And he never gave me a reason when we had that conversation. And it was very brief, but it gave me all the confidence in the world that okay, I've poured into this place and it hasn't gone unnoticed. And I there is a level of trust that I've earned. And I think that that's why I get so frustrated with parents and players who can't just eat the humble pie, see the big picture, and understand their role. It's like no coach is out there, no good coach. Let me say that, because there's bad coaches out there, and I don't want to speak in absolutes. No good coach is out there actively trying to put down the potential ability and opportunities of a kid that deserves them. No coach is doing that, because if they have the potential to help the team, they're going to let them help the team. But
Correct.
If your interpretation of actions is like, well, you're sliding me because you're putting him in front of me, like, absolutely not. It blows my mind. Some people, some guys got to run down on kickoff, and some guys got to catch deep balls. And you got to have them all.
Yep.
Why is it so frustrating? Why is it so unheard of to accept that and be great at it? Why can't you just be the best L5 in the country? Why can't that be what you do? Why can't you take ownership and pride in that? And then on the other side, once we have reached that point from a mental standpoint, why can't the locker room say L5 is just as important as wide receiver 1?
Right.
Right guard on PAT is just as important as Mike linebacker. Why can't, what is so difficult about that? And the harsh reality of it is that it's the inconsistency in message. Good programs have a little bit of like a brainwash cult environment, because you've got to convince kids to think completely opposite of the rest of the world. And if I only get you for 8 hours of on-field practice a week, plus weights and meetings, we're looking maybe, if you can sneak in and fudge and whatnot, we're talking 15 hours a week. So that means the vast majority of your time is being influenced by other people that I have no influence on. So if you're going to back me into a corner because of your skewed perspective, don't expect me to just fall in line and agree with everything that you say because of what I'm trying to do over here.
Yep. 100%. It's the, I think it's interesting when you look from high school to college to NFL. Obviously, maturity plays a factor in all of this, right? That's a big part of it. But the echo chamber is what plays a really big part too, because if you're a college kid, you're likely not going home to your parents. And if you are, you're probably not going to be playing very long. But anyway, so if you're a college kid, you're going home to hopefully good teammates that will support you. And that echo chamber, so long the environment at the program is good, will be positive. So you'll have way less selfishness and people saying, well, you should be doing this instead, because that's what most high school parents are saying. The bad ones, I should say, they're, well, you're good, you should be doing this, this, and that. And then obviously at the NFL level, you don't have that at all, right? I mean, so like those guys understand, hey, if I'm an L5, let's ride. Like I get it. Like that's my role. And I do think the echo chamber is so important, because I truly believe there's a lot of high school kids that will hear you and I or any other coach say, hey, I love you. You're just not very good. And you're not going to play. And I'm so sorry for that. I truly do believe that they will leave the building very upset, as they should be, and sad. Like I would too. If they had an echo chamber at home, it was like, hey, like coach is right. And we're going to trust what he says. And we're going to keep working harder. That kid will respond in the manner that he's supposed to respond. And unfortunately, I feel like 2% of the world, will respond the other way and say, no, it's BS. You're one of the better ones. And they have no idea. And all of a sudden now the kid's being told something different. You know what? You're right. I am better. And there's no factual evidence where it's like, so-and-so is better than me or he's not. And that's where the issues start to rise. It's all like, what is the kid being told, especially in these early years of his development? If he's being told negative things, and negative things will be, coming about. That's how things get manifested. So.
Yeah. And it's so frustrating, because the fact of the matter is that, like, just because I say, hey, right now, you're not a guy that I can with confidence put out there to do his job and execute, that's not an absolute statement. Like,
right. That's
hey,
right.
Right now, sometimes you get told no. That doesn't mean you get told no all the time. So Correct. What will we do? Will we pack up and move on down the road to where maybe the competition's a little lower and I can be guaranteed things by people who don't want to tell me no? Or do I dig my, I mean, there was a point, and again, not to make this all about me, all I can do is try and teach, express my experiences and hope somebody can learn something from them. There was a point. It was fall camp of 2010. Josh Gordon was coming back as a sophomore. Willie Jefferson was still on the offensive side of the ball. Terrence Williams was stepping in to be, a legitimate outside threat. Lanier Sampson had started his entire redshirt freshman year at the outside receiver position on the left side. All those guys are younger than me. And not to mention, guess what? We signed a couple kids because the roster wasn't getting less talented. Mm-hmm. So I see we're going into camp. And Coach Babers never hesitated. He was like, listen, we got to figure out what these freshmen can do. So you're just going to have to stand there and not do a lot because we know what you can do. Now, what he meant to say was that we know you're not that fast. And we know that you're smaller than the majority of the guys in these room.
Right.
But we also know that you're going to be where you're supposed to be. And you're not afraid to get run over trying to block somebody and sacrifice your body. That's what he meant to say. But what he said was, we got to see what these guys can do because we already know what you can do. And it carried on. And at some point, I was used to like an injury happens here, whatever, like, okay, now my reps would start picking up after a week or two or whatever. Well, we get 2 weeks in and it hasn't happened yet. And so I get frustrated. And at the time, the transfer rule was you had to go down to be immediately eligible. And so I start, kicking tires on like, do I need to go to Delta State, Alabama State, Texas State, Sam Houston? Like, do I need to start seeing about these things? And Terrence Williams was like, listen, you're part of our team. You're part of our room. I want you here. But if you think that you want to go explore this and you want to go get on the field and get more production and get those opportunities, then I support you. And that was kind of like the confidence of like, okay, this isn't completely off the spectrum of like reality. So I go to Coach Babers and he goes, I'm going to tell you right now what's going to happen. You're going to transfer in from a Big 12 school to an FCS, and they're going to give you a little bit of money, and then you're going to get down there and they're going to sign a freshman who can't catch for nothing, but he runs a 4.4. And about 5 weeks into the season, you're going to start rotating with that guy, and you're not going to see as many reps as you should have, and then you're going to look up and we're going to be competing for a Big 12 title. So which one do you want? And he was right. And I hated hearing it because in the back of my mind, I'm like, bull crap, if I get on the field, I'm not letting go, yada, 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 this, that, and the other. Like I had convinced myself, but I had already invested 3 years into what I knew was coming. And I just kind of looked in the mirror and was like, do I want to be the quick tackle on a team that might win a Big 12 championship? Or do I want to go catch some balls in San Marcos? Like that's right. What's more important. I got all this sweat equity here and I know how close this locker room is and how good we can be. Let me just stay here. And if I would have left, I can't even tell you what I would be doing today.
Yeah.
So those hard conversations are what set me up to just be great in my role. I needed to be a good teammate to Josh Gordon. And I need to get run over by backup linebackers on kickoff return. That's what I needed to do. So that's what I did. And I tried to do it to the best of my ability. And I didn't catch a touchdown. And I hardly got to play on offense, and that's okay. And I'm better for it because if I'd have gone and chased something somewhere else, it would have been all about me. And I wouldn't be able to stand, if I was coaching, stand in front of a team and say, you can't make it all about you, because I had clearly made decisions where it was.
100%.